Blog Talk Radio.
Welcome, world. Welcome once again to Tuesday Talk with Key West Lou. I am your host, Louis Patrone. Well, welcome back, my friends. Good to be with you again this week. There's all kinds of news out there, all kinds of exciting, demoralizing, weird things happening in the world, and we're not getting most of that news. And the reason is because there's so much of Donald Trump out there that there's no room for anything else. So hopefully some of the things I'll talk about tonight will fill in where we're not getting it on the normal media. I will be mentioning Trump on occasion, but I promise you very infrequently this evening. The first thing I want to talk about, and the first person I want to talk about is Newt Gingrich. Newt Gingrich, remember him? He's still out there. He was Speaker of the House of Representatives. He's been a candidate for president a couple of times. And he's still out there trying to find political favor. He is a supporter of Donald Trump also. Now, let me tell you why I'm going to talk about him tonight. It is very interesting. Recall when Bill Clinton was impeached. Clinton was president when our friend Newt was Speaker of the House. Newt Gingrich led the fight to impeach Bill Clinton. He thought what Clinton did with Monica Lewinsky was absolutely horrible, taking that girl in the Oval Office and having sex with her. Now, you have to understand that under the federal law or federal rules, it's illegal for one federal employee to have sex with another federal employee in a federal building. Well, they had sex in the Oval Office. That takes care of the building. We know Clinton was president, so he's a federal employee. And she was a federal intern at the time. Non-paying job, but yet she was a federal intern, and that, under the law, made her a federal employee. So Gingrich says, I'm going to get this guy, and he was despicable in the way he went after him and put Clinton through a lot of hell. Now, during this time that he's pursuing Clinton and saying, hang him in effect, the Speaker, Newt Gingrich, is having sex in his Speaker offices with a woman by the name of Callista Gingrich. Now, Callista, we know Newt Gingrich is a federal employee. He's an elected congressman. He's Speaker of the House of Representatives. Callista was a paid federal employee. She was a congressional aide, and she was giving Newt Gingrich aid in his offices. Can you imagine what a whore he was? He's having sex with her while he's trying to impeach the president, Bill Clinton, for having sex with Monica Lewinsky. Anyhow, it came out. It came out that Gingrich was having this affair, and he resigned his speakership, and very shortly thereafter, he resigned from the Congress of the United States. So now let me tell you something about his three wives. He's had three wives. Not many people have in this country. Ronald Reagan had two. I'm not saying that's good. I'm not saying that's bad. It's none of my business. But these facts are that I share with you. His first wife was Jackie Batley. Now, I shouldn't laugh. Let me tell you about Jackie Batley. They married. Newt was 19. She was 26. She had been his geometry teacher in high school. Need I say more? She had been his geometry teacher in high school. She was in the hospital with cancer, being treated for cancer. Newt Gingrich wanted a divorce. She was unaware. He went to the hospital and asked her for a divorce and wanted her to sign papers, and at the time she refused. Okay. Now, his second wife was Marianne. Marianne, he wasn't that bad with. She was a conservative woman, very nice. He wanted an open marriage with her. He wanted to swing, group sex, that kind of thing. Must be a hell of a life in Washington, D.C. if the Speaker of the House of Representatives and his wife can go out to a party where everybody's exchanging wives and nobody talks about it, etc. It means other big people are doing this too at the same time. Anyhow, she said no. Now, he wanted to divorce her because he wanted to marry Callista Gingrich. And she was a congressional aide, as I said, and they got married. And she's a very attractive woman, blonde. He always had this thing that wife number one and wife number two were not attractive enough to be the wife of a president of the United States. With him, hope springs eternal. But this third one, I don't know what the first two look like. She's a very attractive woman. Well, what am I unhappy about with this whole scenario? And this is what I am unhappy about. Our president, Donald Trump, nominated Gingrich's third wife here, Callista Gingrich, to be ambassador to the Vatican. She's a Catholic. He's not. To be ambassador to the Vatican. Now, and she's already had a preliminary vote of approval. She's expected to be approved with no difficulty in the next few days. I don't like the fact that Newt Gingrich is going to be walking around the Vatican. I'm a Catholic, though a fallen away one, but nevertheless a Catholic. He's going to be in the government house, the Vatican of the Catholic Church. He's going to be walking around with the authority of the spouse of the United States ambassador. And people will know he's a former Speaker of the House of Representatives, ran 2 times, tried to be President of the United States, et cetera, et cetera. And his judgment is going to be worth something to them, especially since he's a conservative and most people in the that work in the papacy are conservatives. And I don't want him influencing Vatican leaders with his judgments. I consider Gingrich a very immoral man. Yes, I judge not lest ye be judged. I am judging him, and I'm not saying I'm any better than him. I just don't want this guy in those rooms in the Vatican being accepted and listened to for the wisdom he purportedly has. He's not the man to be there. Why the hell Trump did this, I don't know. I suspect he did it because the Catholic Church in recent years, our Congregation of Bishops, or Committee of Bishops out of Denver, have gone over with the evangelicals and formed a union of sorts, only by activity, not otherwise. And he wants Trump wants the Catholic Church solidified on his side when it comes to things like contraception, abortion, etc. in the United States. I consider Newt Gingrich a very immoral man. I do not want an immoral man speaking for my country with the Catholic Church. Very simple. That's my position. Thought maybe you wouldn't know about his third wife being appointed ambassador to the Vatican. Now I want to talk about our government, the United States government. They're back in our bedrooms, in our sex lives. I'm talking about contraception. And I say to them when it comes to contraception, to the government, get out of my bed, get out of my sex life. Get out of everyone's sex life in this regard. Again, contraception is the issue. Last week, it was announced that one of the federal departments in charge of health, et cetera, had amended or changed a certain portion of Obamacare, which had provided that employers must provide contraceptives under the insurance plan for free to women. And if they found it against their religion, well, then they had to raise that objection, and it would be ruled upon. Well, it's not going that well. So a bunch of nuns fought it, and they lost in court initially. That's on the way to the United States Supreme Court. But the new rule says employees can opt out if the employer does not approve on religious or moral grounds. Can you imagine moral grounds? I don't even know what that means under the law. It's so wide. On religious or moral grounds, if the employer objects, then he doesn't have to provide it. Now, they gave 2 reasons why they felt this was the right thing to do, because listen to me, there's 55 million women in the United States receiving contraception for free under Obamacare. They've whipped it out. It's effective immediately, Attorney General Sessions said. And what do you think the 2 reasons are in support of this? 1, women already pregnant at the time contraception is utilized, if the woman's already pregnant, this could cause the fertilized egg to be expelled from the uterus, could cause the fertilized egg to be expelled from the uterus. In effect, an abortion. Have you ever heard this before? I'm 82 years old, product of a Catholic education through college. I never heard this. And in fact, what I've read is that there is no scientific or medical basis for that position. It's bullshit, all right? The second reason is even flakier. It's immoral. This is your government telling you this, what's moral and immoral. It's immoral for women to have sex without accepting the possibility of pregnancy. It's immoral for women to have sex without accepting the possibility of pregnancy. This, I think, represents the church's influence now that they're in bed with the evangelists on the far right. Attorney General Sessions, not a straighter man exists in this world. He says the rule will be enforced immediately. It's in effect immediately. Now, let me tell you what I think. This one really gets to me. Contraception, follow what I'm saying, prevents unwanted pregnancies. Am I right or wrong? You practice contraception. If you do it the right way, 99.5% of the time, the woman will not get pregnant. Prevents unwanted pregnancies. This results, in my opinion, in a situation where abortion never becomes an issue. If the woman can't get pregnant, then abortion's never discussed. All right? Very simple. So actually, contraception's good if you want to prevent abortions. I know this is half humorous what I'm saying, but if you think about it, it's true in effect. Now I want to talk about abortion. I'm into this tonight. Abortion. There is a Republican congressman from Pennsylvania, Tim Murphy. He's been around a long time. He's a leader in Congress of the anti-abortion movement. He recently co-sponsored the bill passed by the House. This was just 2 weeks ago. A bill was passed by the House of Representatives banning late-term abortions. Murphy's married. Murphy has a girlfriend. It seems all of them have girlfriends. This is terrific. It's wild. He has a girlfriend. She got pregnant from their relationship. She told him. He emailed her. He said, consider an abortion. Would you believe it? One of the leaders in the anti-abortion movement in this country telling his pregnant girlfriend to consider an abortion. She got pissed off. She was upset. And she wrote back, how could you consider this? How could you recommend this after being such a fervent anti-abortionist all these years? Somehow the emails went public. Everything goes public in this country. Murphy announced he is resigning from the House effective the end of this month. Happy Birthday Afghanistan. Happy Birthday Afghanistan. Do you know that today's October 10th, 2 days ago, on October 8th, was the 16th year of our involvement in the war in Afghanistan. We've been there 16 whole years, and we're still there. Thousands of Americans dead, more maimed, injured, some losing limbs. Civilian deaths, they increase. They're increasing dramatically right now. And while all this is going on, this big-time war, we're losing all these soldiers, and they're getting injured, and civilians, children are dying, etc. Opium production, the heroin comes from opium. Opium production, the growth of the poppy flower, opium production this past year went up 43%. Would you believe it? 43% in 1 year. Now, when the war started in 2001, opium was not a big deal in Afghanistan. They had raised it in the past to some degree, but the Taliban had taken over the country. Now, we're in there fighting a war against the Taliban. The Taliban, for religious reasons, were anti-opium. Okay? So they told the farmers, you either stop or you die. What they did with those that were reluctant to stop, because it was financially beneficial at the time, not as good as today, they chopped their heads off. Very simple. So the people of Afghanistan went out of the poppy business, okay? They were out of opium. Now, 90% today, 90% of the opium in this world comes from Afghanistan, one country where there's this horrendous war for 16 years. We have in the United States, on the streets of the United States, an opiate epidemic, okay? In the United States alone, we are experiencing in recent years 64,000 deaths a year, people dying from overdoses of heroin, which comes from opium, which comes from the poppy flower that's grown in Afghanistan. Big money, big money. Now, got to be a lot of people on the take over there, and I'll tell you why here very briefly. I mean, money's got to be exchanging hands. I'm not sure between who, what countries, etc., but you draw your own conclusions. I have said in the past several years many times, and I have written many times, why is it with this horrendous war in Afghanistan that never ends, our people keep getting killed, our people keep getting maimed, civilians being killed, not one poppy field has ever been bombed, nor has one poppy farmer ever been killed. You heard me. Not one farm has ever been bombed, not one farmer ever killed. Something stinks, okay? Somebody's got to be paying somebody off to stay away from these things. There's another problem here. We have a big, great, effective contingency of Marines there who are trying to help the Afghan people and who are opposed, and their job is to get the people to stop raising poppy and to raise other things like wheat and corn. In other words, instead of our Marines going and just bomb these goddamn fields, eradicate them, get rid of them right away, we're trying to tell the Afghan people, look, that your land is good. They have very rich land over there. You can grow wheat and corn. Well, who wants to grow wheat and corn? They can't sell wheat and corn for the money they're selling the opium for. They'll take a big drop in income. It's simple. They can't make the big money if they do that. I'm talking about even the farmers, the little people. They make more money growing that poppy flowers than they would growing wheat and corn. So money's involved. And our government is afraid. As I understand it, there was a Marine officer on television 2 mornings ago on one of the shows, and he was very upset with what's going on there. And he says, our government, the politicos in Washington, are keeping the opium business going and therefore the heroin on our streets. Our job is to eradicate the poppy fields. They won't let us do the job. Bomb them. Just destroy the fields. Rather, we've got to push. We've got to educate the Afghans about wheat and corn. And this is what's coming out of Washington. This is the political line. This is the administration's line. Not just this administration. It goes back to Obama, et cetera. It's all of them, Bush, because they don't want the people to get mad at us. There's some of those people over there are on our side because we keep them content with payoffs and everything else. Not the kind I'm talking about here, but we do provide payoffs for people to remain our friends instead of going over the other side. And our government's afraid these people will desert us and join the other side. So I say happy birthday, Afghanistan. This war isn't going to end for a long time. Remember also this. The Afghan people are a tough people. Historically, they have been so. They're like the Vietnamese were, the North Vietnamese during the Vietnam War. They just don't give up. They're hard-headed, they're firm, they're tough. The French tried to defeat the Afghans and take over the country. They failed. They left. The Russians tried for 10 years and got their asses whipped. They left. Now we're in there. We didn't learn from history. Bush, too, brought us in there, by the way. The second President Bush, it was his idea to go. I still don't understand why, because we are still there. So, happy birthday, Afghanistan. I hope I'm not here in 10 years, and it's still your birthday. I hope I'm here in 10 years, but it's still not your birthday. Let's get it right. I want to talk about Puerto Rico for a moment. Puerto Rico's still with us. I cannot fathom, I cannot understand President Trump. I know they're not a state, but they are a territory. They didn't ask to be our territory. There was a war in 1898. Remember the Spanish-American War? One of the spoils of war, which the United States obtained from Spain, but via the Treaty of Paris after the war, was Puerto Rico. We must have wanted it. We took it. Now there are 3.4 million Americans living there. We see the destruction on TV every day. Horrible, terrible. I live in Key West. 20 miles up the road, you got the same destruction over here, but it only covers about a 20-mile swath. It's disgusting. Why aren't we helping these people? We've already got electricity up there. We've had food and water up there immediately. They need power. It's almost a month since Irma hit Puerto Rico. And that was not Irma hit them. And then a week later, Maria hit them. They had 2 Category 5 hurricanes back to back. 90% of the island is still without power. Now, you can't do shit, excuse my language, without power. Callista, you've heard of the company, Telsa. They're in all kinds of things, electric cars and everything else. Their CEO is a very wealthy man. He's made his money coming up with new things that work, and you've heard his name, Elon Musk. Elon Musk. He met with the governor of Puerto Rico, Ricardo Rosello, a few days ago. And his joint statement with the governor afterwards was that he would like to solarize. You know, Puerto Rico's an island like Key West is an island. We got all the sun down here. Why don't we have polar panels on the rooftops? Why go through the electric way? Let's make our own. There's so much sun here you can't lose. Well, they're looking into it. Musk believes, it would be cheap to install and quicker to install. He's already done this in America, the America Samoa, and he's partially done it in Hawaii. I used to travel Greece frequently, and I can tell you this, certain of the islands are totally solarized, especially Santorini, a very popular tourist place. Historically, many stories to go with it. But every house had on top of it a solar panel, not like the way we see them here. They were actually boxes, maybe 6 by 4, one of them, that's all. If it was a big building, it had 5 or 6 of them. And that's how they solarized, or that's how they powered up, electrified, in effect, the buildings. If Greece can do it, and they had it on Armagos, too, the little island I go to that I love a month at a time, people there do the same thing. They got these little solar boxes on their roofs, and it does the job. I watched all the TV I wanted 24 hours a day. I had lights when I wanted them. Everything worked. My computer worked. But we don't do it here. And one of the reasons we don't do it, let me tell you this also. I only know this from my Florida experience. If you take the time to ask and find out why we do not permit solarization on any significant scale in the state of Florida, it is because Florida laws are geared to prohibit or minimize the use of solar panels. The electric companies, the utility companies have a gigantic lobby in the state capital, Tallahassee, and it's very difficult to use solar panels. In fact, I'm going to tell you this. During the hurricane, those people that did have solar panels and are permitted to use them, very expensive down there if you do put them in, could not use them following the hurricane because the electric power was down, because the law says, and this law was prepared by the lobbyists for the electric companies, obviously, that some of the people, some of the men for the electric company out there on the poles trying to connect everything back up again might be injured if people use their solar panels. Maybe true, maybe false. I think it's bullshit. They just don't want the competition. It will affect them economically. Let's stay with Irma for a minute here. Some of you may be interested, I hope all of you are, in the recovery from Hurricane Irma here in just in Key West, I'm going to talk about right now. Key West was hit pretty good, But if you see 20 miles up US 1, we weren't hit bad at all. It's a relative thing. We lost trees. We lost buildings. We lost rooftops. Cars turned over, tractor trailers, but not in comparison to 20 miles up the Keys. But we lost trees. I want to tell you something that I've never seen so many huge trees, trunks you can't put your hands around, ripped up out of the ground, and maybe 10 feet by 10 feet or 20 feet in diameter, the roots and everything, out. And the little ones come out. The little ones are 20 feet tall, these trees. The leaves went first on the trees. Then the bark went, okay? So you got leaves and you got bark, and then you got the trees down. The trees have to be cut up, and they've got to be transported out of here. It's called debris. And I'm not talking again about the furniture, the refrigerators, the buildings, that wood. I'm just talking tree debris. I have never seen so many downed trees on the side of the road. There is not a street in Key West without downed trees, and it covers 60, 70, 80% of the street. It's absolutely amazing. Now, they've been out there working for 3 weeks. I'm going to tell you something. Trucks all over the place removing this stuff. But the debris is of epic proportions. That is how it has been described, of epic proportions. So the going is slow. There's just too much. It's been estimated there are 400,000 cubic yards of debris out there. I don't know what it is, but if what I see is 400,000, I got to tell you, folks, it's a lot. In 3 weeks, they've only been able to take away 70,000 cubic yards. That's 17 to 18% of what's there. It's going to take several more weeks to get rid of it. Fantasy Fest comes up about the 22nd of this month. The debris ain't all going to be gone. And it's terrible. I'll tell you, the debris is terrible. It rains every day. October's our rain month. It rains every day. Well, the sun's out. Then it rains. The stuff gets soaked. Then the sun comes back out. It stops raining. Now the humidity comes into play, and this stuff stinks. It's been sitting there for a week or two. It stinks, this debris. It smells. It's rotten. Okay, that's that story. Let's see. I got time for one more issue here, and I love this one too. I think bankers are whores. Banks and bankers are whores. They've got one of the strongest lobbies in Washington and in the state capitals. They have laws made that favor them so they can make a shitload of money off people, everybody, you, me, and everyone else. And the bankers get rich. How many bankers make $1 million plus a year? 2008, though, is the proof of the pudding. They gave us 2008, the banks and the bankers. Millions of people lost their homes, but a lot of bankers made $1 million a year for the first time, and because they made money off of people suffering. Millions of people went into mortgage foreclosure, and yet the banks never got hurt because of all the bad things they did that caused the foreclosures. Anyhow, I say, and I've been saying it since 2008, let's arrest a couple of bankers, charge them with these crimes, convict them, put them in jail, and the rest of them will stop pulling the shit because they're still doing things wrong today. Quickly, because I'm running out of time. Vietnam, CEO of a major bank, Nguyen Xuan Son. He screwed up and somehow cost his bank 1.5 trillion dong, 65 million in American money. They arrested him, tried him, convicted him. He has been sentenced to, I don't want any of these bankers to die, but send them to jail for 5 years. Thank you for joining me. I hope you've enjoyed the show this week. I do a live video every day on Facebook, Key West Lou Live, 2 or 3 minutes. I talk about whatever I think about when I sit down. You may enjoy it. Take a look. Other than that, thank you for joining me again this week. I look forward to being with you next week.
Okay, keep your eyes closed.
Okay.
I want to show you my first ever painting.
All right.
Okay. Open your eyes.
Oh, that's a lot of colors and shapes.
So be honest. What do you think?
Well, I like how if you switch to Geico, you could save hundreds of dollars on car insurance.
Oh, yeah, that's true.
Yeah. Here, why don't I hold your paintbrush while you call them?
Geico, because saving 15% or more on car insurance is always a great answer.
Progressive presents Mindfulness with Flow.
You are a mighty fortress of supreme knowledge.
Progressive Direct has not only revealed their rates, but those of their competitors. If you were any more in the know, you would be drowning in, the know.
Compare Progressive Direct rates with competitors' rates, because knowledge is power. Visit Progressive.com. Progressive Casualty Insurance Company and Affiliates. Comparison rates not available in all states or situations. Prices vary based on how you buy.